Hey, aloha, and welcome to Embers Rising, where love meets business. I'm your host, Wendy Jae, and I'm super fired up you're with me today. And hey, hanging out next to me in my studio, I guess in our other studio, is my husband and business partner, David Tucker.
Yeah, it's really not a studio. It's just the bedroom right next door, but we've turned them into studios. So aloha, everybody. Welcome to be Wendy Jae's co-partner, co-host. And before we get started, I just wanted to check in with ChatGPT. ChatGPT, what's the number one thing couples working together argue about? Oh, here it comes. Money, right? So financial issues are frequently cited as the major source of conflict in relationships. Surprise, surprise. This can include disagreements over spending habits, savings, debt, financial goals, and income disparities, which fortunately we don't have that problem. I make all the money and Wendy, you spend it all, right?
That's right. Exactly. Today, we're tackling the tightrope walk of navigating finances as couple entrepreneurs, from open communication, money mindsets, to creating systems and generating those crucial sales. Let's dive in. Enjoy the episode. All right away, I got to talk to you about what kind of person I am when it comes to money and making financial decisions, because I have to tell you that, as you know, I'm a risk taker, and my method of trial and error and going all in has gotten us in a lot of financial trouble.
A lot of financial trouble. Boy, you might have to define that, but here we go. We've just launched the episode and all of a sudden, I'm going to disagree with you, Wendy, because we've made a lot of decisions. You've made a lot of decisions together. I don't think we've created a lot of failure. We've created a lot of opportunity, some of which did not work out, right? So I'm just thinking back on what you said, and I thought I was the risk taker, but I am remembering the High Performance Academy episode. So we might have to talk about that a little bit.
Let's dive into that risk, because actually that had a positive financial outcome that we did not expect. It was a big financial risk, and we went all in and we came out of it still winning, actually, after that.
Here's the setup, right? Wendy and I had just gotten together. I don't even think we were married yet. We were living in Hawaii in this one-room ohana, right? They call it an ohana because it's like a little side house off of the main house, but that's what we could afford. And Wendy sat me down and she said, we have this opportunity, and it's to fly to San Diego, and it's to go to an event called Brendon Burchard's High Performance Academy. And the whole thing with flights and, cost and so forth is going to be about $10,000, which at that point in time was probably everything we made in a month. And so you can imagine my surprise. I was like, okay, tell me more.
Yeah. And I was all about the risk. I was thinking about networking, meeting people to help us scale, sharing our story, really just getting ourselves out there, getting us around a different group, because we're a little bit isolated in Maui at the time. So it was really helpful for us to make that big trip on over.
And I'd never heard of Brendon Burchard. So, I quickly have to look him up online. I'm like, oh, this guy seems legit, right? It's not one of those things that you find in a hotel, right? Where they're trying to extract money from your pocketbook. But I was still hesitant. We went anyway. We took the risk and arrived there to a roaring crowd. I didn't know that everybody's going to be screaming like a rock star and Brendan's going to be dancing on stage. But it was eye-opening, and we had two incredible financial takeaways from that one event.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it was like 1,500 people in that room, and there was a gentleman that came on stage that was just rock star, and I really wanted to work with him. And I thought, this guy's great. I'm going to do a little digging what's happening with his website. And as I was sitting in that room, the internet connection barely worked, and his website was not pulling up. And I just thought, okay, either it's the room or it's his website. And I reached out to him on LinkedIn, and he was on stage speaking right at the time I reached out to him on LinkedIn and just saying, hey, your website's down. I can fix this very quickly. Do you want to connect?
And it was amazing, right? Because obviously he was on stage. It wasn't instantaneous, but I think he probably also wondered what was going on when he made his offer. He got off stage and probably there wasn't a lot of activity. But what resulted in that is he saw that message. He reached out. He said, please, I don't really have much of a team. Help me out here. And that resulted in being one of our top tier clients, right? Because ultimately he said, if you can notice this and fix this so quickly, what else do you see, right? And that's how we got together with that individual. That has led to so many other relationships for both business, and personal, and growth mindset.
That's also where we end up meeting Dr. Daniel Amen.
Yeah, absolutely. So Dr. Daniel Amen was speaking on stage, and that really resonated with us. Wendy's had some head injuries during her mountain bike pro career, and yeah, we wanted to look into getting that brain spec scan, and that ultimately led us to becoming certified brain health coaches, right? That's kind of a big leap, Wendy, right? Like from we saw a guy on stage to now, 120 hours of study later, we're brain health coaches.
That was awesome. Yeah. Well, I just share that story because sometimes financial risks can lead to a positive outcome, even where, and it can also lead to a very bad outcome because we've definitely done risks where it just is not a great thing. But I think this kind of ties into kind of our first segment going into communication and talking about how important it is when you are making financial decisions as couple entrepreneurs, really having the open, honest communication, starting into that as and advocating the transparency with each other to have these discussions.
From that one episode, now when we talk about events, we have a different mindset about it, right? And that's because our communication is really open and honest about these things. We know that for the most part, when we get involved, and now we're continuously like lifelong learners, we always have an event in our future. We're always working with a coach. We're always working on a course, and it's that open and honest dialogue that really gives you like this transparency and the honesty, especially in the space of financial discussions and decisions, which for some reason, right, like Chat GPT said, can be a friction point. And couples sometimes and business partners tend to just sort of bury that stuff down. What do you think, Wendy?
When you two of you sit down to have those financial discussions, it's really important that you clear away the fear and the judgment together, because when one person's holding back, you really have no idea what that person's feeling about a decision that you're both about ready to make. And no matter how big or how small the decision is, I think both of you need validated on your feelings, and both of you need the space to be heard and listened to. So those are two things that Dave and I continue to work on to give each other that space. That has made it a lot easier for us to now set aside regular meeting times of financial discussion conversations where we have money talks and we look at current finances and future goals and where we're at and the concerns that we may have in a very non-confrontational manner, because it's now set up as a weekly kind of business meeting.
Yeah, that's really a pro tip, right? Because when you're in business, and as a couple, like your time is strained, and things can sort of escalate and just go on and on and on if they don't get talked about. And that can have negative consequences, with a lot of things, especially when it comes to money. And so you really need to just set that time aside. You need to schedule time and say, this is our money conversation. And for us, what we do is we really check in on Monday morning, right? We open the books, we look at where we're at, where are the accounts at, receivables, sales, all those sorts of things. And I walk away just sort of with that peace of mind for the rest of the week that I know exactly where we're at. And so that has really worked for us.
So make sure that when you get together and have the money talks, it's open, it's honest, it's transparent, and you're giving each other the space and without any judgment there. Dave and I also make a lot of decisions based off, and you should too, data. Data does drive the discussions. And do you want to emphasize on that, Dave?
It's just anything around, money. Money is a number, and a number fits in a box, and there's a formula to whether it's growing or going the right direction, or, you're leaking money and it's going the wrong direction. And so having discussions around the metrics of money, what's in the account, what's growing, what are we currently doing, what's our plan, what's our success rate, all of those sorts of things are knowns that if you plug them in, it makes those sort of money conversations much easier to digest, right? Because you're not speculating, you're not coming from a position of fear. It's like, this is the facts. And the facts lay out on a spreadsheet very, very quickly, right? Or a notebook, however you like to look at things. So in almost everything we do, if there's a data point, we bring it into the conversation and have the conversation around that. That's that pretty much sum it up? Or was that a long-winded answer?
It is a long-winded answer, but I was just going to say this kind of approach when we're talking about data-driven decisions for finances, it avoids the emotional drive in the conversation and really focuses it in on the objective of the reality of the situation. So that is extremely helpful. So when we're talking about implementing this, you are now looking at the hardcore facts of your budgets, your bank statements, projections together. You're looking at the documents, your subscriptions, your memberships, where's everything going, what your client services are, or your tool, your services, your product. This really encourages overall the decisions based on data, not just the feelings or assumptions that you two might have as you're moving forward, or one of you might have moving forward.
Last thing, when it comes to finances, you need to look at the past, and that's the metrics. And that's also presently where you're at, but you need to set goals, right? Collaboratively sitting down and aligning your goals in terms of money, how much work you're going to do, how much you project you're going to make, how much you're going to save, how much goes into retirement, where you spend on fun stuff and trips and things like that. All of those things, if you sort of lay them out, nobody feels slighted, right? Or nobody feels like their voice isn't heard. And often we hear from couples that are in business together, one person controls all the money, the other person sort of likes to put their head in the sand. And then interestingly enough, there's this dynamic where each person sort of feels a little bit of resentment. And over time, that resentment can build, right? And can really damage a relationship. And it's funny because the person with their head in the sand says, I don't know where the money's going, yet they're doing nothing toward it. And the person that is handling all the money says they don't help me do the things. So that's sort of, again, a long-winded answer for goal setting, but needs to be part of the conversation and communication.
I think goal setting is like your marriage, and you're married for a reason, or you're together as partners for a reason. You have the same goal and you're running parallel. The same thing with your business or a business that you're about ready to start with each other. Really get nitty gritty on where you're driving your goals together. You don't want one person on this tangent over here, one person on this other financial goal, and you're not really putting the two together to really work towards a common objective. So the financial goals together is super important. Like David said, be in alignment as a partnership and extend this whole thing together and advocate for each other. That's really important, just like your marriage. So think of it like that. It does involve taking time and sitting down together to work on this. And for us, David and I, we are big Monday users, but whatever you use, we have a place where on our Monday, and we're talking about Monday.com, by the way, it's a project management tool, but we have a section in there called finances. And in there, we'll have a board just called, trips, events. We'll have, which is like personal stuff happening, or maybe there's business. We'll have tools, subscriptions, memberships. We're tracking everything constantly all the time in there, which is super helpful when we sit down, because we now have a place to look at physically of like where stuff is, or something we missed, or, hey, downloaded this tool for a client of ours and forgot to tell you on my phone, it cost this, so make sure you get it in there. That's why these goal setting and weekly meetings are so super important, to go over the necessary items when you're talking about finances. But the way to track it and visualize it is so important together.
And as a couple, just, in closing this part of the conversation out, you have an opportunity that's extraordinary compared to other business owners and business, relationships. Because as a couple, I like to say like two hearts, one fortune, because you can create really exponential growth, because you're not just working 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. With work-life integration, you guys are always coming up when you work together with great ideas, things that you can do. And so I find that couples have like 4 or 5 times the output of 2 regular people that are working together. And when you're moving at that rate of speed forward and growing so quickly, communication is key, right? Because even if you're both just a little bit off course over time, you end up far away. So with that said, let's jump into money mindset.
Oh my gosh, money mindset. Everybody hears about money mindset too. And they're like, oh, I'm so sick of hearing about money mindset. And like, I don't even know how to even get started. But I think for us, we're going to share with you 3 tips of creating a different type of money mindset that you may not have heard of. Because when you think about being in business together, I really want to focus the money mindset on the business partnership that you two are working on together. Do you want to kick this off, David? Because this is so important. And I know money mindset just seems like this random word out there. And there's so many different types of money mindsets, but I really want to tailor this towards couple entrepreneurs, the business part, the finances side of what it takes to have this different type of money mindset.
First of all, there's only 2 things you can do with money, and that may be surprising, but you can either spend it or you can invest it. And whether it's just sitting in your wallet, right? That's just cash that's invested in an empty space and it's not doing anything for you. Or you can invest it, in a savings account or real estate or whatever. That's really only 2 things that you can do with money. And so the first thing I want to say is, from an investment standpoint, invest in value creation, right? And a good example is what Wendy did when we were at that Brendan Burchard event, and she texted that guy. She was creating instant value to him in terms of what she was offering, right? She wasn't asking for, hey, if you pay me this, I'll fix your website. It was like, hey, get me access. I'll fix your website now. You'll be up and running. And hey, maybe we could have a conversation after that, right? And so that sort of thing, if you're always thinking in terms of creating value with your investment, whatever it is, your time, your money, your resources, you're always going to be sort of on the right side of growth, right? And that's where we all need to be.
I was just going to jump in and say, when you are creating that service or product together, think about solving the problem for the customers, and you may also need to pivot. So really keep up with the times, but it is the fundamental principle of a successful business is solving the problems of the customers. And when you can do this and you can create real value for people, it is the path to wealth and hopefully you're doing it because you love it. If you don't love it, then you should probably change to do something that you love. And believe me, David and I have been through different business models that we didn't love, and we had to make changes. And getting into something that your heart is into can really help the path to wealth, because people feel that you are there with them 100%, and the value that you're ready to deliver to them makes you more tuned in to the product and services that are available for them.
The second lesson that we learned from that very first event where we reached out is we landed a blue chip client off of that, and we learned that money wasn't the issue for him, right? He only saw money as a tool. And so that's point number 2. And we had created instant value for him. He was like, what else can you do for us? And, we gave him a list. We ended up spending a week with him in Hawaii. He actually flew over, and we had what we call a board meeting where we all get on our surfboards and paddle out, which was great fun, but it was a different mindset, right? We had never looked at it that way because we'd always sort of thought of money as like this thing that you got to hold on to. And literally, he taught us that it's a tool that you use to grow more money, more resources, more wealth, and more value creation, right? And that was just an interesting way for us to experience the world because we'd never seen that before.
I agree with that 100%. Money is a tool, and don't think of it as the end goal. When money comes back into your business, how can you put it back out there and provide more value to your services, your products, to achieve the mission of your customers and yourself? So those 2 things are really important to remember. But yeah, money as a tool is great. I also want to jump into learning about money is a constant every day. We are constantly learning about money. It never goes away. It's so important to constantly be learning and reiterating the business that you have, adapting your business, especially if you're in the online world or you're running an app or a channel or some sort of service. So many of us make financial mistakes when we don't adapt our business and we're holding on to a past business model. And that does not help. You really have to level up. And also it can help to just reach out to your competitors. Pick up the phone. Don't be afraid. Connect with those people out there on LinkedIn, on social, and let them know what you're doing and see how maybe you can help them. Maybe they're oversaturated and they are going to provide you something. You never know how it's going to work out in relationships. But the point of this is always constantly in learning and adapting, and reach out to people when you know that your business model may not be working or you're in a sticking spot of even scaling. So constantly be learning.
Just to close that thought, I don't know for you, the listener, where you grew up in terms of money mindset and the learning and adaptation. Personally, I grew up in sort of this middle class where, I didn't have anything to want for, but we also weren't wealthy, right? And nowhere in my education was money mindset and investing taught to me. And so it didn't come naturally. And later in life, I realized that I had missed something, right? I had a lot of great things in my life, but one of them was not a lot of wealth. So we're playing a little bit of the catch-up game too, because Wendy, I think you sort of came from a similar background.
Yep, for sure. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Money was just not a tool. It was, we were just spending, constantly spending. So I had no idea about money where, I have really had to skill up in money. I'm still skilling up in money. But yeah, I do want to share a story though about when you have something in your business that's working and something new comes in, but what's something that thing is already working for a couple of clients. It's on automation. It's working fantastic. Don't feel like you have to kill it. Dave and I have been through some situations where we've continued keeping clients for years and years and years and years and years because their product, their service is on automation, and we continue to scale it, and we're adapting and reiterating our services as online world moves in marketing. But it's fantastic because it leverages our time to also be working on something else that we're really more passionate about. So I just want to share that story. If there's something working and then scaling, like keep it. And that might be the thing that you just need to scale yourself. It might be that piece.
In life, there's always the sobs, right? Those shiny objects that appear on the horizon. We have diverted from our mission a couple of times because they were just so great. And some of them were really good opportunities. Some of them were learning opportunities, and some of them set us back. So we're just coming out of a setback that we had with relationship to that. So that's all I'll say about that. It's a natural part of business. You're going to see opportunities, but remember there's an opportunity cost, right? Every time you take something else on, you lose the ability to maintain something. And so, like if Wendy said, if you can automate it, and it creates multiple streams of income that doesn't take your time.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So cool. Let's dive into creating financial systems, because when we started, we didn't have any financial tracking systems. We didn't have financial tracking systems until we started getting the moment of scaling, where we wanted to scale and we really needed to make data-driven decisions, not just decisions on assumptions. So we added these systems to our business to help us get a bigger picture and make decisions again off the data. And I think let's dive into tracking analysis, because I think that's one of the most important places that you need to be meticulous about tracking the income, the expenses, and the key metrics that are happening in the background.
That's for sure. So if you're listening and you've listened this far, thank you. We love you. But you're probably saying right now, didn't we just talk about metrics? You're just using different words. It's that important, right? Because you cannot improve that which you don't track. And having a tracking and analytical system, a modeling system for everything that you do in your business that revolves around money is key, right? And that involves, everything from accounting systems to, the books and all of those other things. And in our relationship, we're both really good in this space, right? I actually graduated with an accounting degree. However, Wendy has the meticulousness to keep up with it every day. So she tends to run the books. And you want to talk a little bit about this portion of it?
Tracking analysis is great. When Dave and I combined business, I think you have to look at also personal, especially if you're small to medium business. We had to look at where everything's going, where can we visually see it. So like I said, we used Monday.com to put all of our subscriptions, memberships, anything that pops up that you're going to sign up for, but also for business. What are we tracking on business expenses, credit cards, slimming down the card so we can track what's one card is just being charged for subscriptions or clients or what have you. Then we also have a bookkeeper that we meet with every week. We go over the books, and it doesn't have to be every week, but looking at your financial statements, reviewing this on a weekly or monthly It's super important. We have hired a virtual bookkeeper, and then we also have an accountant that helps us. But just having those two pieces is a big piece off your plate where you can focus your partnership and your energy into the services and product that y'all are delivering. So, it's just important to take time to meet with the people that are helping you in those books. And if you don't, I'd really highly advise to try to have or hire a bookkeeper to help you, even if it's a virtual bookkeeper. There are low-cost bookkeepers that do a great job, and they've really helped us identify areas where we didn't see before in our books, or we needed a cost reduction, or we needed to budget here or there. We can assess the returns, but it kind of forces you to have that meeting with that person. So it forces you to look at the books too in another way. We look at it weekly, but also from a higher level from the bookkeeper and then the accounting side. So I can't say enough about tracking analysis. It's very important to know where you're at.
And I'm going to derail here for a second. We all knew that was coming. First thing I want to say is we have a QuickBooks like platinum certified bookkeeper that's overseas, right? And that's the beauty of money, right? Because it's a system, bookkeeping's a system. It's universal, whether it's in dinars or dollars. And the cost for someone at that expertise level is a fraction of what it would be if I hired them right next door. That's just the reality of it. So don't shy away from using foreign vendors that are certified. And we had our accountant review their work, and our bookkeeper's like, our accountant was like, where did you find this person? They're better than most of the people that submit to us through our other clients. The other thing I'm going to derail on here is I think Wendy has mentioned Monday.com several times. And we are not like paid affiliates for Monday.com. I don't know. Are we? We should be.
I don't know. I don't think we are, but I'll have to go through our partnership.
When Wendy and I first got together, I was an Evernote user. She was a Trello user. I didn't know what she was looking at. She didn't really want to use Evernote. And so eventually we managed to slowly merge into one system that has become primarily based in Monday.com. And that way we can share everything, right? We can share all of our notes. We can share all of our boards, all of our tracking. We can send messages in there, that hit our Slack. And so those two systems have been a gold mine for our relationship and our money mindset.
Yeah, and one tip I want to share, when we were doing spreadsheets before, when we were tracking finances, one of the things I loved about moving to Monday, are some of our tracking for subscriptions and memberships, was that we could do a screenshot of whatever the account was and like pop it into the comments and then leave a message for each other. So each other like knew, something about it, or like, hey, this account needs canceled. And so we could also know that person's working on it and there was a status there, where a lot of that you just didn't get on an Excel sheet. So it was just easier for us to manage where things are at and go through on a weekly basis. We have all of that in there. Plus you can add the URL. It's great. We can do a screenshot. I loved it. So still loving it.
All right. We better move on here. And that is number 2 in creating financial systems, is you need to create a system for investing back in your business, right? And I know that's going to be different if you're a brick and mortar business, a restaurant down the street and you're a couple together running that, versus like what we do. We're primarily in the content creation space, and we also have a digital marketing agency where, primarily the investment back into our business and into scaling is our own minds, right? Our own skills pay the bills, and then into tools that help automate things and make it easier to do more quicker so that you can, accomplish more in less time. And so that's how we think about investing back into the business. And ever since that one Brendan Burchard event, I'll never turn down an opportunity to go to another event where we'll learn more, right? We consider that not only investing in our business, but it is, because we get to write it off on our taxes, right? Our next event, Wendy, is going to be in beautiful La Jolla, California. It's going to be Bo Eason's personal story power, right? Where we get to get up on stage and learn how to be on camera better. We learn how to be on stage better. And the people that work with us, get to go with us, and we got to have a fun time in La Jolla leveling up. How do you think about investing back into the business? And maybe you can talk a little bit about the systems around that.
Yeah, when I think about investing back in business, I think about the profits of reinvesting back in your marketing, your hiring, your service, your product development. It might even be important to set a predetermined percentage for you and your partner of 20% that we reinvest back in the business each month or quarter. And that way the budget can be allocated based on the growth plan that you have, targeting specific areas like your campaigns, your talent acquisitions, or the technology improvements that you need to make. I think that's really important. That's what I think about when I think investing back in your business.
And I think in that conversation, people got to see how we come together and yet we're so different, right? Because
totally.
I immediately go to, our growth. And you immediately go to the nuts and bolts of actually the structure. Totally. And that's why, you're really our operations person here. Like, I don't want to touch that with a 10-foot pole. You're so good at it. And for me, I just always have that sort of marketing ideation mindset. And that's the beautiful thing, right? Like, as long as we're communicating on those things, we're not going off on our own roads. So thank you for that, babe. I love you.
Great. Well, let's talk about planning for the long term, because that is another approach that we have for this section. And I do think you have to think about long-term perspective. It extends into your money management. And when you have a system that involves planning for the future, for your financial needs, and setting aside money for long-term goals and unexpected expenses, it's very important that you implement that. And maybe, Dave, you want to talk a little bit about separate savings, investment accounts, for business expansion, emergency funds, retirement.
Right. As a couple, you are planning for the long term, right? And I hope you are, because any other mindset that you have is going to not serve you in the long term. We talked about Bo Eason a second ago, and he has a great saying: there is no plan B for your A game, right? And so when it comes to planning, you need to obviously have redundancies, but you need to approach your business with this long-term perspective. And this might involve setting up, for us, separate accounts for different silos of our money: investment, expenses, spending, fun, savings, an emergency fund, those sorts of things. Yeah, that's really what I want to say about that, because there's so many things that you can talk about when you're talking about long-term goals and planning.
So just make sure it's in your conversation, that you have a plan or you're working towards it, and you have a system that involves the planning part. That's the most important, is the system for extending your money management. Let's jump into Dave's favorite, because it's generating sales, and you cannot have a business without generating sales. That's important, or you don't have a business.
And funny, everybody's saying, I knew he was going to be good at something. I knew he was going to be good,
right?
And so
yeah.
So where Wendy excels is in the operations. The thing that I love is the sales process, right? And you can't have a conversation around money if you're not talking about where does money come from, right? And it can be different for a lot of people, but for a business owner, and that's primarily what we're talking about in this series, is people that are couples, that are entrepreneurs, that are working together. You got to generate more money. You got to generate sales. And we very much like to take that Alex Hermosi style. We use him as our North Star. And that is, you're always creating value. You create value first in every single thing that you do. If you do that correctly, and if you haven't read $100 million offers or $100 million leads, that should be the next thing you do after this podcast. You'll never be in a position or a want for more sales, because people will always be coming back to you because they trust you. Value equals trust.
Mistakes can be made 100%, but trust should never be broken. And, David's talking about up-leveling your value, making sure that the value that you have is so valuable that it becomes irresistible to your service, your client. And you now are creating everything that you have for potential customers to refer to you. You're solving their problem. You're helping them achieve a goal. This now is building that big trust piece, and builds your sales. So be the expert in the space that builds the sale, but offer enough value that they are overwhelmed with the amount of value, which is actually what Dave and I did when we had 2 travel marketing agencies. We completely over-delivered on everything we could to provide as much value as possible.
Yeah, and I was just going to point out, historically for us, sales have seemed like they come very easy, right? And that's because so much of our business is referral driven. And I'm partners with another agency, digital marketing agency out of San Diego. We were just looking at that agency, its clients, and we have 20 of them right now that have actually left, right? They actually left the business at one point and went to work with someone else for whatever reasons, right? And then they've come back. They've said, the grass was not greener on the other side. And if you always are creating value in that space, you'll never want for customers. People will always be pushing people your way, right? It's like, have you heard about these guys? They're awesome. I know that sounds like brand, and it is. That's really the core of brand, is that referral business. And if it sounds like we're winding up to talk about a sales funnel, you're absolutely right? Because creating value is the first step of the sales funnel. What's the next step, Wendy?
Well, I just want to say before we dive into that how important your value is, and to not second guess yourself. Once build something so great that you have whatever you're offering, build it so great that it just drives from the heart and you're delivering with 100%, 110%. Go all in and make it irresistible. So I just can't say enough. The value is so important about what you're about ready to deliver, and crafting that to make that compelling offer for funnels is so important, because you have to package what you have, your value, as a very attractive piece for the value and pricing, so it becomes a no-brainer for your target customer.
Yeah, absolutely. So in everything you do, there's this value piece that attracts people. There is the offer that gets them into the sales process in the beginning. And you have to continually refine that offer and look at the metrics, look at the numbers, and see what's working, and have an honest conversation with yourself. If your business isn't doing well, is it your offer or is it your product, right? A lot of times, if your product was incredible, your offer could be mediocre and you'd still be full. So you need to look at those things, but it's a never ending game, right? It's not a one and done. Every time we put out something, and we just tweak it every single month to see if we can make it a little bit better, a little bit more interesting, and a little bit more valuable for the people that are out there. That's my goal. Isn't to make as much money as possible, but it's to create as much value so that people cannot resist coming in and asking how they can get involved.
To me, compelling offers are like Christmas presents. The gift that you bought for your best friend is amazing, but then you wrap it so well. The packaging, when you go to the gift shop and you had they wrap it and they do the totally different special bow, they add a little something special on it. It just looks over the top. That's your compelling offer. You want it to be packaged so sweetly that it's not junk in the inside, for sure, not, but the packaging is critical to your sales strategy. When you can enhance the value and your core offer, you can really up-level the value proposition, and that speaks directly to the customer's most pressing needs and their desires. So I just want to mention that compelling offers to me is like getting a Christmas present in a fantastic way that's packaged so greatly that I'm like, yeah, I want that. It speaks directly to me. I get that. I'm all in.
Okay. Last part 3 is systemizing the sales process. Yay. Again, did I mention it? I love sales. Here's the thing, right? I consider myself really good at sales, and for years, I would just sort of wing the sales process based on, what the customer said and those sorts of things. And it wasn't that my closing ratio, was good or bad. It's just that it took a lot of time, right? Because I was constantly coming up with unique proposals and, add-ons and extra conversations. And what I found is by systemizing the whole process and not doing things that are out of scope, right? What I found is that the process was more efficient. It was an easier process for the customer, right? Because they understood it, because I was able to deliver it in a cadence that was quicker, easier to consume. And so if you're one of those people right now that are out there winging it, I see this in the coaching space a lot. They don't have a systematized close or sales process that they go through. Tighten that thing up and you will be ultimately more successful, not only closing more deals, but having more time and creating more value. There we go.
I was going to say too, when you're talking about systemizing sales process, it's important to constantly be adding to your email list. It's one of the most important things is to be adding to your email list and then moving your prospects into those initial awareness stages into the closing with your sales team, whatever that means for you. And then have a CRM system to track leads and automate your follow-ups. That makes a nice kind of, again, back to the Christmas present, a nice bow ribbon on top where you're doing that follow-up and at least keeps them, on the top, your service and product on the top of their mind. So that's really important.
Just to reiterate, the implementation of the sales process, like 9 out of 10 people that have a small business that's a service, or 9 out of 10 people that have like a coaching business, those sorts of things, they're not working off a script. They're just flying by the seat of their pants. And so make it your mission today to sit down and look at the way you do that and come up with, an initial script that you can follow. And it'll seem awkward at first. It'll seem a little bit canned, but what you'll find out is eventually you'll be able to, move through it much quicker, and you'll have less stress around it, especially for people that don't like selling, right? Like, I don't care. You can give me a blank slate and I'm okay. But if that's not you, working off a script is going to serve you in a much bigger way.
So I want to recap the main points of this episode. It's so important because, we just got done talking about sales, and I want to just go back up and talk about what we just covered so that you have some tangible walk away steps. We talked about communication, how important it is to have open discussions, having data drive your decisions, and making sure you are setting goals in a parallel fashion.
Then we talked about money mindset, and that was around value creation, using or thinking about money as a tool. And then, of course, learning and adapting.
I think learning and adapting is the continually constant ongoing that you've got to have. We talked about systems, creating financial systems, tracking and analysis, investing back in your business, and planning for the long term together.
And then finally, we talked about sales, right? How to get more money. And that's just by creating value and crafting offers that are compelling, and then automating the process. Go sales.
All right. That brings us to the end of today's episode. Man, we dove deep into navigating the financial challenges for couple entrepreneurs working together. We didn't go as deep as we could have, Dave, but we went the best that we could to just give you a little bit of sneak peeks. And we hope this discussion was enlightening and gives you actionable insights to apply to your own entrepreneurial journey with your partner.
Right on. And just remember that you're not alone in this, right? Like, every entrepreneurial couple faces its own unique set of financial hurdles. But with open communication and a solid plan, you can absolutely navigate through them successfully and stay together.
That's important. So if you found value in today's episode, we have 2 simple asks. First, please subscribe to the Embers Rising podcast. By subscribing, you'll get notified every time we release a new episode, and it helps more people discover this resource.
And our second ask is, we want to hear from you, right? Like, please leave us a comment or a review and let us know what are your financial challenges as a couple and as entrepreneurs, right? Your insights not only help us tailor our content to serve you better, but they also create a community where we can all learn and grow together.
We're certainly in this together as a community and as a couple entrepreneurs. So, hey, don't be shy. Share your story.
Thanks again for joining us in today's episode.
Keep those embers rising. And until next time, remember to communicate openly and love deeply in business and in life. Stay ignited, everyone. Mahalo and aloha.
Aloha.